Alright, what's going on guys? Today, we're going to look at another World Championship winning deck in Magic the Gathering's history. This time, we'll be looking at the deck that won the 2001 World Championship, Machine Head, a black-red deck that liked to blow stuff up and pummel the opponent with beefy creatures, and is possibly named after a metal band that was popular at the time. Possibly, maybe, who knows. The 2001 World Championship would take place in Toronto, Canada, and the deck would be piloted by Tom Vandalo. At the time, Standard was composed of Mercadian Masks, Invasion, and 7th Edition, the core set that I learned to play Magic with, as it happens. So, how did Machine Head work? Well, what really set the deck off was Dark Ritual. A classic card that hasn't seen print in some time. It simply adds 3 black mana at the cost of playing the card. The reason this was so important to the deck was it allowed it to ramp into really big creatures very quickly, and then it would follow it up with a flurry of removal spells while the creature wailed away at the opponent's life total. So this kind of enabled the deck to be way faster than it should have been. So to give you an idea, a couple of the creatures that played were Skizzik and Phyrexian Scuda. Skizzik is a wrecking ball, coming in and smashing the opponent before leaving the battlefield, although you could keep it around for an extra red mana. The Scuda was even scarier though. A 4 mana 3/3 isn't all that impressive, but if you paid the kicker and ramped into it with a Dark Ritual, it could be a turn 2 5/5, and that was a pretty hefty creature for the time period. Getting a 5/5 out on turn 2, the opponent doesn't have a removal spell for it, that thing is going to town. It also played Blazing Specter and Plague Spitter. The Blazing Specter was actually decent by itself, a 4 mana 2/2 with flying and, very importantly, haste, that forced the opponent to discard a card each time it dealt damage to them. And the haste really made this worth it, just because, it was attacking the turn it came into play, it was unexpected, and with the help of those Dark Rituals, it could come out on turn 2 and start stripping the opponent's hand away at a blistering pace. So yeah, not bad. The Plague Spitter, on the other hand, was actually quite spicy because you could get it out on turn 1 with the Dark Ritual. It deals 1 damage to everything when it enters the battlefield, and then it continues to do that every single turn. If this thing entered the battlefield on turn 1, it could effectively neutralize the opponent's early game creatures by literally destroying anything with 1 toughness every single turn. It could also just come in and wipe the board against token decks. Kind of reminds me of a certain creature in Standard at the moment, don't you think? The final creature in the deck was Flametongue Kabu, alongside Crypt Angel, and man was this thing a powerhouse in this Standard environment. A 4 mana 4 power creature that blows up a creature when it enters the battlefield. It was just fantastic. Blow up a creature, clear the way for this thing to start hammering for 4 damage per turn. Yep, if you were playing red, you were probably playing the Flametongue Kabu. It was a really good card at the time. Killed pretty much everything and, cleared the way for all of your other beaters in the deck. The Crypt Angel made Flametongue Kabus even more destructive because it could return them to your hand, and this is a nice transition into the next segment of the deck because the rest of the cards are all about that destructive lifestyle. The deck ran Duress, Vendetta, and Terminate. Rakdos Control, disrupt the hand, kill all the things. Ah man, I love it. These cards just make me happy. So anyway, Duress was basically the Thoughtseize of the day. If you were playing black, you were playing Duress. Obviously it doesn't hold up to today's standards, but at the time, Duress was the premier hand disruption spell. Vendetta, on the other hand, let you kill anything for a single black mana, so long as you were okay with losing a bit of life. And Terminate is a true classic, 2 mana, destroy any creature, no drawbacks, no conditions, and at instant speed. The deck also played Arthas Rage, which is a really awkward but interesting burn spell. First, it's 3 mana to deal 3 damage, which is pretty bad, though it does come with the added benefit of not being counterable. The real upside though is the kicker cost. If the game went super late, you could kick it for an additional 9 mana, and then not only deal 10 damage instead of 3, but also make that damage unable to be prevented. Now, yeah, that much mana is unheard of. That's a lot of mana to spend on a single spell. But remember, there are dark rituals in this deck, plus it has a very heavy control element, so games would go long, and you would sometimes build up, multiple dark rituals to fuel this thing out kicked. Now don't get me wrong, it's not going to happen often, and it's not the main reason for playing the card, it's just a nice bonus. Basically, it's a burn spell, 3 mana, kill a creature with 3 toughness or less, possibly throw it at your opponent to win the game. Basically a very expensive lightning bolt or a lightning strike. It just, every once in a while, maybe you have 10 damage instead of 3, and that'll end the game. If it goes long and you top deck it, it can be pretty fantastic. And yeah, that's it guys. That's literally it. Blow up your opponent's board and play some big chunky butt creatures to beat down your opponent. I kind of love it. It's definitely my kind of a deck. But let's take a quick look at the mana base. It ran the port, because every deck ran the port. It also played Sulphurous Springs and Urborg Volcano for dual lands. And then it played a stack of basics. Yep, basics and duals, not a whole lot else. So next, we'll take a super quick look at the sideboard. We won't go too in depth here, as that requires an understanding of the entire metagame, but it played extra Flametongue Kabus in the sideboard alongside Crypt Angel and Scoria Cat, and the Scoria Cat was a metagame answer to a landlocked deck that was very popular at the time. It also ran Addle and Persecute, both of which can absolutely hose monocolor decks. Persecute in particular was insane with Dark Ritual. If you could cast this on turn 2 and name the one color that your opponent was playing, yep, their entire hand is gone just like that. Because you name a color and they discard every single card of that color. So if they're playing monocolor, this is very, very painful, especially on turn 2. That's hard to come back from. And lastly, it played Pyroclasm as a board sweeper and Phyrexian Arena in case you needed to draw extra cards against, like a blue control deck or something. And that's it. That's the deck. Machine Head. Pretty typical Rakdos, to be honest. Just kill all the things and then beat down with big creatures. That's Machine Head, the deck that won the Magic the Gathering World Championship in 2001. So there you go guys, now you are a little bit more familiar with Magic the Gathering's history and another classic deck from the early days of the game. If you want to see more World Champion decks, there will be a link in the description to a whole playlist. So yeah, check that out. There are plenty of cool old school decks to check out. But for now, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.